welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and today I am joined by the author of an absolutely unputdownable thriller. I had to put it down to have this conversation, but otherwise it is entirely unputdownable. It is riveting, it is harrowing, and it is a whole lot of fun. And I am so excited for this conversation. So welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Virginia Trench. Our Secrets Were Safe tells the story of two friends who almost have everything they want, but a terrible crime they committed and thought they got away with has come back to haunt them.
Oh my gosh, it is, as I said, harrowing. And the characters are so juicy and interesting and complex. But before we get too much into the book itself, I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about your journey to this book. Tell us a little bit about your career and where this project started.
Sure. For the longest time, I was convinced that I wanted to be an English teacher, which was such a fun phase of my career. I absolutely loved it. And that definitely influenced the Brooke chapters. I could draw from my professional experience there. But I had just had this lifelong love of everything to do with books and writing. And I thought, well, I'm obsessed with these juicy thrillers that you kind of read in one sitting and have these smart female characters. And I really wanted to try my hand at writing one. I started this book in 2019, and it has just been a wild ride, actually getting it from a hot mess of a Google document out into the world. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm curious about that drafting process because you juggle different timelines and lots of different perspectives. And I'm
Mhm.
always curious, when writers structure their books that way, how different is the final project from your first draft? Do you do a lot of
Oh man.
juggling around? And like that's gotta be a really tough puzzle to put together.
Yes, and I could not have gotten it all straightened out without my brilliant agent, Tess Calero, and my brilliant editor, Lori Kuzatsky. They both helped me get this in a way that hopefully makes sense. I think in the first draft, the Sophia chapters were actually diary entries. And it went through so many revisions, so many, just making sure all the timelines made sense and lined up. And it really, three heads are better than one. So if you're asking, how do I, write these timelines? I don't know. You'll have to ask my editor and agent because I couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, writing is a weird process because parts of it are very isolating and very, you're alone for a lot of it. And then but it also is like kind of a group project a little bit and you do
Yeah,
connect with
totally.
other people. So let's talk a little bit about the main characters, the sort of the set of roommates who we meet at the beginning of this book. You've based, as you've already hinted at, some aspects of their experiences and their interests on yourself, like Brooke is a teacher. Can you talk about shaping the other characters and their dynamic?
Oh, sure. I was obsessed with creating a feminist tech startup. And I actually worked for a tech company for a while. So Caroline's company, Equilibrium, was so much fun to create. And I think that the development of her company and her character went hand in hand because I had to think about, okay, what kind of person would have the tenacity to try to create this and get it out into the world? Ironically, I thought, oh, there's so many great things happening with DEI when the book was being written. I had no idea the turn things would take with this current dumpster fire of an administration. So it's sadly all of that has become super topical again. But yeah, for developing Caroline, it was very much her professional interest with hand in hand with her personal background. And with Sophia, I wanted a love story. And I also really, I felt it was very important that she have a presence in the novel. So I wanted her POV chapters, even though in the current timeline it's a decade after her death. So that was probably the most influential bit of crafting Sophia, was making sure she gets a side of the story and her voice adds a layer of, I guess it's she said, she said. I almost said he said, she said, but it's more of a she said, she said. That makes the reader hopefully question, okay, who's the real hero here? Who's the villain? And spoiler alert, no one's innocent in this story. And that for me was the most fun.
Yeah, I think something really interesting goes on when the way that you juggle the different perspectives. You do a lot of blurring of the the boundaries between victims and perpetrators.
Hmm.
And everybody is a victim and everybody is a perpetrator too,
Hmm.
sort of.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really curious about like how does that play into again like your shifting perspectives and the way that you shift between time? Because in thrillers, like it's really important what you reveal and when, you know? And
Hmm.
so how does shifting and structuring the novel like help you pace out your secrets? Does that kind of make sense?
I can't say, gosh, I wish I had some grand plan master strategy for pacing all of the reveals, but truly it was just a matter of following the three different character arcs. And I love the recent shift just in the thriller genre in general of having these complicated, flawed women driving these absolutely compulsively can't put it down stories, because we have the anti-heroes of, Tony Soprano, Walter White. They're super well known and they're super male. And I liked the idea of having that anti-heroine element present in the story. And yeah, I wish I could say, oh, I, had this totally planned out way of pacing the secrets and the reveals, but really it was just a matter of thinking about the three characters, their journeys, and they do just intersect in ways that I hope add complexity and urgency to the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk a little bit more about that sort of the like toxic female relationship aspect
Mm,
of their
mhm.
dynamic, as well as the role that class plays, because I think
Yeah.
that's a really interesting aspect too.
Yeah. They all three of them have very different relationships with this upper class, very East Coast, very preppy environment that Brooke is born into. And so is Caroline, but she's always, on the outside of that because of her relationship with her stepfather. And Sophia, I'm super interested in the dynamic of these beach towns on the East Coast. She's a local, her mom is a business owner. And so she sees this life of luxury, but oh, I think there's a line in the book about like her nose pressing up against the glass and trying not to smudge it is kind of how um, she sees Caroline's world, and she sees Brooke as this entitled interloper into the relationship that she has with Caroline. So that adds lots of interesting toxicity. And one thing that was fun to write was each of these women think that they have the others totally figured out. But they could not be more wrong in terms of what's actually going through. Like Sophia thinks she understands Brooke, but she really has no idea what Brooke has been through, and vice versa. So I think that um, that was a fun commentary to write on how we think we understand other people, but there's always layers and layers and layers of what we don't see.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the common phrase is that we are constantly comparing our insides to other people's outsides and
Totally.
sort of mistake that outside for the entire package of a person. I
Yep.
found that aspect of Sophia's story really relatable, actually, because I was also a scholarship student at like a big fancy private university at one, and there is a lot of like, um, like it's a wonderful opportunity and like you have so many great experiences, but there is this sort of like imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
oh, that can lead to like resentment a little bit. Like, look at all
Hmm.
these people have that I don't, you know?
And they don't even think about it. And that I think is the biggest shock to Sophia's system is um, just what so many people take for granted.
Yeah, totally. I think like when you are mixed together in that sort of like the mixing pot of college too, like you see for the first time like how easily some people move through the world where it seems
Hmm.
people are struggling all the time. So yeah, I found that like so interesting. Um, I'm curious about a little bit more about the class aspect too, because I think that like we as a culture, perhaps just as human beings, like really like to like get under the hood of like the elite sort of like privileged rarefied classes and see like both the dysfunction underneath and to sort of see them get comeuppance. Um,
Hmm.
this is a huge philosophical question, but why do you think that is so interesting to us? And like, why does it have so many good story potential?
That's such a great question. And I think that Nicole Kidman's career has a lot to do with that. I just like looking at Netflix, I'm like, oh my God, just like the woman is nonstop. Um, that's such a great question. I think it's a couple of things. Number one, I think as humans, we all have a degree of Schadenfreude. We enjoy seeing, or we get some sort of intrigue out of the struggles other people go through. I think it's just part of being human. It's a dark part of human nature, but that's what makes the thriller genre so much fun to write in, as you get to explore the dark side of the human psyche. So I think that is part of it. We enjoy the idea of, peeling back the layers and getting into other people's dirty laundry, even if they're fictional. I think another part of it is, in these upper echelons of society, there's an increased pressure to maintain that facade of perfection. And with that pressure, the stakes get higher. So, there's a push pull between I have to maintain this image of perfection, and nobody's perfect. And the more public, the more wealthy, the more powerful people become, weirdly, the more power they have to um, influence the lives of others, manipulate others, take advantage of other people. And that is just like such a recipe for creating a vast, I don't know, chest of dirty secrets. So I think those two components are key.
That's such a great point. The stakes are absolutely elevated because you do have this like heightened distinction between like private life and public life when you are at that level of wealth and
Hmm.
power. That is so interesting. I'm going to frame this really broadly so that you can, reveal whatever you are comfortable revealing. I would like
Okay.
to reveal as little as possible. But, when you are writing twists and turns,
Hmm.
stuff like that, I am curious, do some occur, are some planned like in the early pre-writing process? Do some come up organically and surprise you as you are writing?
Hmm.
When you are writing twist-oriented stuff, like how do you keep it fresh and unexpected for you, the author, as well as for the audience?
I am a compulsive planner. So most of my twists are planned because I'm a compulsive writer, but I'm also a compulsive reader. Like I love the thriller genre. I call myself an unapologetic thriller fangirl. So I like to create the kind of reading experiences that I love. So in order to do that, I really do have to plan out far, far, far in advance the main twists and turns. But I will say though that the twists that take me by surprise most often come out through dialogue between the characters. Weirdly, just in the writing process and thinking about, oh, well, how would this character react to this piece of news? Or how would the relationship, I don't know, reach a breaking point with all this other stuff that's going on, and sort of stepping into their shoes. I wouldn't say surprises me because that makes it sound like, I don't know, like I'm hearing little voices in my head and the characters are just kind of um, forces of their own, which they are to an extent. But the the layers that emerge organically most often come from the characters interacting as I'm writing. But to be very boring, most of it is planned out. I'm a big outliner, big planner in the pre-writing process.
I feel like, especially with thrillers, and when you are plotting so many different aspects and you are changing perspectives and times, like you need to plan a lot for that because that's a very complicated dance of, shifts and moves.
Totally. And it
So,
has to feel satisfying for the reader. When a definite pet peeve of mine is feeling like a twist came out of nowhere, or there weren't sufficient breadcrumbs earlier in the story to lead to the grand reveal. So that's another reason why I try to plan it out.
nice. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, because like the best twists seem like they take you totally by surprise and shock you, but also in retrospect they can feel not obvious, but
Hmm.
rational or like the
Yeah.
possible outcome, once you are looking backwards. So.
Hmm.
Mhm.
One promise I made to myself is the bad guy or the bad, I don't know, the villain will reveal themselves within the first 25 pages of every book that I write. Um, and yeah, that's just sort of it's like a reader writer code. Got to stick to the code. No like gotchas. Because I think that I don't know, it just makes the ending less satisfying for me. So I try to keep that in mind when I write too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is such a fun ride. Like this is an absolute banger. Like so
Thank
congratulations
you.
and thank you. Are you, I know that this one is about to come out and that you're probably
Mhm.
pressed, but are you writing at the moment? What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I am actually editing my second novel, tentatively titled Mr. Disappear. It's about a dating app con artist and a group of women who band together to take him down. So that is in its last editorial push, and then I'm working on proposals for books 3 and 4. I have so many ideas, just want to keep going.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and Godspeed on your writing because that
Thank
sounds.
you. I need all the help I can get.
Well, thank you again for joining us.
It's such a
And
pleasure.
And listeners, thank you for joining us too. Please check out Our Secrets Were Safe. By the time that you hear this, it'll be out in the world. So head to your favorite bookstore, website, library. Do you have a place that you like to send people for books?
Ooh, your any local bookstore.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I recently just something about I have a toddler and a 2 month old. So any excuse I can get to physically leave my house unaccompanied by children. And so I've recently rediscovered just like going to a bookstore, which sounds so basic, but it's just one of life's simple joys. So anytime you can do that for yourself, do it.
That's great advice. All right. So you heard our author. So get out there to a bookstore and check it out. Okay. It is time to close this chapter. We'll see you next time.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.